So I'm here with Dustin Kochensparger, who's a producer at Bungie. Fun fact about being at GDC is you get to run into cool people like this guy. So how's it going?
It's pretty good. It's pretty good. The weather is a lot better
Yeah, it is.
than it was when we got here. No, this has been a really good GDC. It's I'm just looking out at the crowd. Like, it's probably the biggest number of people I've seen here. But still running into a lot of good people, a lot of good talks, a lot of good stuff going on. It's a good year.
Yeah, we're actually in the second floor of Moscone West, so there's a lot of people here, but there's many, many, many more that are not shown at the moment in other buildings and floors.
Yeah, especially the lines for the VR talks.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
All of them around the corners, every single one.
Yeah, I couldn't get any of them.
I stopped trying after the first day. I was like, these are great. I'm going to watch these on the Vault.
Yes, yeah, that's pretty much the same way I felt. I was excited for them. I actually want to see more VR stuff, but really though, what do you think is the coolest thing you've seen this year?
Oh man, coolest thing I've seen this year. That's a good question. I saw this really awesome asymmetric game earlier in the week that was being demoed. I think it might still be here on the third floor in the, like, one of the indie areas. They got this really cool game where one person's holding like an iPhone, and the other person is using a tablet, and the person with the iPhone is blindfolded, so they can't see. And they're controlling the character who's on the person with the tablet screen.
Okay.
So like they're like tapping the phone and turning their entire body with the phone in it to move their character and shoot, but the person who can see the screen is actually directing them of how they need to turn and tap to shoot.
Oh, neat.
It was really cool. I mean, I love asymmetric gameplay, so like anything that's got stuff like that is really cool. So that looks really neat. That was probably the coolest game I've seen demoed so far.
You said it was on the third floor?
Yeah, it was on the third floor. It was in that like indie booth area. There's a bunch of good stuff over there. There's also a really cool sort of like 2D Life is Strange that I was talking to one of the devs about. That's yeah, it's really cool. It's an LGBT friendly sort of narrative game in the vein of Life is Strange, sort of about a high school student. But according to him, and I downloaded it and played the first bit, and I can attest that it's a little bit less crazy than Life is Strange with some of the stuff it does, but it's really well written. It's really cool, episodic, and it's out on phones right now.
Nice.
I downloaded it already.
I haven't had a chance to go to a lot of them. I've gone to a lot of talks, but I haven't had a chance to go to a lot of like individual game demos and stuff.
I usually go on, like, if I have 15 minutes between talks, I'll like stop by one of the indie booth areas and just like find someone who's not busy and talk to them about whatever they're working on, because there's really cool stuff to see here.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, last year they had this is where they debuted Keep Talking, No One Explodes.
Yes. I met the devs at PAX actually in that same year. Very cool game. I like the game a lot. Also asymmetric gameplay.
Yeah. So actually a lot of people ask me about producers, and in general, most people seem to not know, and I try to explain it as best as I can, but most people tend to not know or have a very, very wild misconception of what producers do. Do you mind talking about that for a bit?
Yeah, sure, totally. So you want to know what producers do in a nutshell?
What would you not only just describe what a producer does, but just kind of anything you wish you knew about it, or any kind of misconceptions you hear about it?
Yeah, totally. So I think being a producer, it's sort of a jack of all trades kind of job, right? Like, every studio has a different definition of what producers do. There's usually two main camps that I tend to notice. There are product-focused producers and there are team-focused producers. So for places like Bungie where I work, like, it's team-focused production. So most of my job is focused around supporting teams of people who are working on whatever, different kinds of stuff. And it varies from group to group, but overall, like, you're focused on helping teams do things. Some places, the producers are also responsible for product. I know Microsoft has a model sort of like this, where their producers are called product managers, program managers, one of those two. I can never remember which one. And they're responsible for figuring out what a deliverable is, like what thing are we making, and then figuring out how they're going to make it. So it's sort of a dual role. But a lot of places in games, it's actually more of a team-focused role. So that's what I'm most familiar with. And in that team-focused role, you really do whatever needs to be done to make sure that the team can do their work as effectively as possible. I spend a lot of time helping them with schedules, figuring out how much work can we take on and how can we actually get it all done, so that we're not underwater, we're not crunching or anything. I spend a lot of time doing communications work. That's one of the biggest things, especially at larger studios, is you're working with a small group of people that have a certain amount of information that they are of the thing they're working on that needs to be spread around to the rest of the studio, but also you need to bring information in from outside the studio to your team. So it's a lot of information management to make sure everybody knows what's going on and make sure that we're all on the right track and we're on the same page, because making games is one of the most collaborative things you can do. So like being able to manage that pipeline of information is really, really important for producers. And then after that, it's really just a big catch-all bag of everything else that needs to get done. No 2 days are really similar, I'd say. Like, some days you're just doing a lot of email. Like, for some reason, there's a large volume of email rolling in, and like you have to answer questions and disseminate information and move things around and all that sort of stuff. Some days you're in meetings, literally back to back, like running them, taking notes, recording things, making sure that you can get the people you need in the room to solve whatever problem it is that you're working on. Some days you're just hunting things down, like finding people, asking them where stuff is, getting answers to questions, and anything in between. Like, the number of problems you have to solve in a given day is so variable. It's really like you have to be ready for anything, because you never know what's going to happen. What kind of thing do you need to do to make sure that your team is unblocked and able to keep working on stuff? So yeah, it's a lot of flexibility and a lot of figuring out what to do on the fly.
Yeah, say a lot of putting out fires as they arise, right?
Yes,
never knowing
exactly.
Where the fire's going to happen.
Yes, indeed. It's definitely one of those roles that, like, it's really nice to have someone who's thinking about all the things that nobody else has time to think about, if that makes sense. Like, because that's sort of my job, is to like think about the entire picture for the team of like not only the work that they're doing, but the work everyone else is doing and the project as a whole, and make sure that like we're thinking about all the things we need to be thinking about and checking all the right boxes so that we're all on track and making the stuff we're supposed to be making.
Yeah, definitely, right? So what do you think your biggest takeaway this year is from GDC?
It seems to me the biggest takeaway is probably VR is potentially big.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems a little obvious, like, at this state, but, like, I was amazed. Like, there's an entire new GDC, like, track called VRDC.
Yes.
It's all about VR. There's an entire booth upstairs that's, like, 10 different people doing VR. Like, Ubisoft is right there showing off a VR thing that I've never heard of before. Like, really cool stuff. And, like, every talk, like I said, every talk is completely packed out that has to do with VR. I don't know that any of this speaks to how successful VR is going to be just yet, but I definitely think that like this has proved that people are really interested in VR, at least in the games community, and there's a lot of hubbub about it, and there's definitely a bubble forming right now of like this could be really, really big.
Yeah, one of the companies just kind of proved their success with a third-person camera VR.
Oh yeah,
what's the name of that game?
There's a pile. Blanking
on what it was. One of them had like a really big success takeaway from doing third-person games in VR, which I think was not originally the expected use of it.
No, it wasn't. I think I know what game you're talking about, and I can't remember the name either. But I remember them talking at somebody's press conference about that sort of thing of like making a third-person VR game. We never really thought that would work, because VR is sort of like, oh, it's first person, but they kept talking about a lot of the takeaways being like, even if you're not fully immersed in that character, like, we're able to immerse you in the world, right? Like, you can still see everything around you, even though you're not making that connection between the character and you, physically, as a person. Like, you're still connecting with that world because you still feel present there in some way, even though you're disconnected from feeling as though you are that person. Yeah. Which is really cool.
Yeah, also, I mean, the prices are steeper at the moment, but...
of course they are.
But they're a little bit cheaper than, like, say, a giant TV or something, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you have the right hardware, like, it's definitely not the most ridiculous upgrade ever. Yeah. Especially for, like, the PSVR, I think is really has potential to be quite popular. Yeah. Just because, I mean, if you already have a PlayStation 4... it's only $500, and it's plug and play, which I think are two key things for making VR successful with people that aren't gamers. Like, I think that's one of the things that's really going to be interesting, is that like most of the VR stuff right now for Oculus and for Vive are very focused around being PC centric, because that's where a lot of the development community is. It's really easy to disseminate demos and stuff, and it's sort of where the thing was born. But like, I could never see my mom, for instance, like finding a way to acquire a like PC of quality required to run VR, and then on top of that, even if we had one in the house for some reason, like she would never be able to figure out how to plug it in and configure it, get it going. But like, if PSVR is as simple as I think it's going to be, like, and it's just probably 2 USBs in the front of the thing, like that's pretty compelling because it's
True.
a very simple solution. It's hopefully just like the console, like guaranteed to work, like put the disc in, play the game sort of thing, which I think could be very, very, very cool.
Yeah, PSVR actually was not on my radar until I got here, and now they had a whole big booth down there, right? Mm-hmm. They're showing lots of demos. It looks really good. The thing that did surprise me is they took a poll here. I mean, I don't know, earlier today or something, right? And what one is the most compelling to you? And actually, the GDC devs mostly voted on PSVR, which surprised me. I didn't.
That's
expect
interesting,
that.
That is surprising because I've always felt. I mean, I've been touting this opinion for a while, ever since sort of like it became clear that these were going to be the three big players in the like console high quality VR space. I always thought PSVR was going to do well, but it's interesting to hear that other people agree. I think it'll be interesting to see how it all shakes out. Like, they're hitting the market a little later than everybody else in the fall, whereas Oculus is coming out very, very soon, I think, like within a month or so. I can't remember the date, but very soon. So I'm very interested to see what the software offerings are going to be like, and see how the development communities shake out, like, and what the actual install bases start to look like. I mean, I have no idea what the number of like gaming PCs that can run VR are out there, and how that compares to like the number of PS4s that have been sold. So it's very interesting to see how all that stuff's going to shake out. I ripped all the games out of my portfolio.
Oh, really?
Well, one of the things I've been working on is like, how do you make a producer portfolio?
Yeah.
Because nobody really wants to see work I've done because it's not relevant. They want to know about experience. So
yes.
I haven't figured it out yet exactly what I'm going to do, but like my portfolio now is really just like a landing page, has a bunch of links to my social, LinkedIn, and all that sort of like get to know me stuff.
Yeah.
And then I have my resume page, downloadable links to all that stuff, and then I have my development blog, whatever that is, like, or I just write papers randomly sometimes. I don't know that they're very good, but they're there if people want to learn more about my thought process. And that's it. That's all I got right now. I haven't figured out a better way to like make a production version of a portfolio site.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really hard question, right?
I think so. Because you're just showing off like experience. Like,
yes.
That's 90% of every interview I've done for production is like talking about experience or showing that you've had experience with different kinds of situations and stuff.
Yeah, even for like programming interviews, I tend to, at this point in my career, right, I tend to run into the same thing where it's like, can you do this? I'm like, yes, I can, and they'll ask some technical questions, but for the most part, it'll be like, explain how you did this. Like,
yeah.
Explain your experiences at these, previous jobs.
Right, exactly.
Explain why, you worked in this type of mentality.
Yeah. And LinkedIn like already handles so much of like the work experience stuff way better than I could do on a site that I've made.
Yeah, right.
So like a lot of the novelty of that wore off once I decided I didn't want to be a programmer anymore. So making my own website wasn't really a nice little checkbox to have anymore. Yeah. So I switched over to WordPress, and like it's been really nice to just have like the domain that I own, but like I only use it to have the domain really, and to like send people off into other places when they Google me, like, oh, here are some links that I've given you, like, go find out more about me. Because I think I haven't found a great way. It's a problem I've been thinking of, but I have not found the answer yet to how I wanna do that. But I'm gonna keep trying.
I'm sure some information out there, maybe.
I don't know. I read a lot of. When I was rebuilding my resume, I read a lot of articles about like production stuff, and like there's not a ton of people talking about it out there. Like, it's actually really interesting. I'm really considering writing a Gamma Sutra article about like, hey, I'm a producer who just got into production. Do you want to do that? Here are some things.
Well, I think it'd be great, right? I heard it here first.
Yeah.
Who's gonna do it?
I think I have to. I don't know. I've never written anything for Gamma Sutra. It'd be interesting to see. But the more because I love coming to this place for that exact, like, I love the mentorship aspect of being at GDC, like, especially when I'm volunteering with the conference associate program, like, yeah. I get a chance to talk to a lot of students and find ones that are interested in production, or just people that have other jobs and interested in production, and like teach them a little bit about like what it took to get in, and like the kinds of things that I've spent a lot of time looking into, like what makes a good production resume, like here are the things I think, like what kind of skills are people looking for, like here are the things I can tell you, like just lots of stuff that's like there's not a great primer out there for. Like, I've read a few books, but like it's hard to find books that are specifically devoted to like being a producer.
Oh yes, yeah, definitely, right.
So it's especially in games, like you find a lot of stuff for movie production, but like I've found very little of that to be very useful for games.
Yeah, I think games in general tend to be a experimental area, right?
Yeah, totally.
I find the same thing with a lot of things I try to look up, especially around like network programming or multiplayer development.
Yeah,
it's non-existent. I mean, there's some things, but they're. I mean, Valve has some great resources for Source about how they did multiplayer stuff for Source, but besides that, like that's the one everyone points to. Like, these guys did it.
That's it. And
they wrote something up about it.
the what is it? The AI article about Age of Empires 2, right?
Oh yes, yeah.
That's I read that as one of the when I was interviewing for a different position somewhere else. Somebody pointed me to that, and I read through the whole thing, and I was like, this is amazing. That like one of the pinnacle articles about like multiplayer in games is about Age of Empires 2, but it's still on Gama Sutra. It's a really good article, though. Definitely recommend it. But it's interesting. Like, it's hard to find good academic sources to talk about a lot of this stuff.
It's got to be us.
It's got to be us. That's right. We got to do it. I guess now I have to write a Gama Sutra article.
At some point, we switch over into being the writers, right?
Yeah, that's what they say anyway. So we have to give a GDC talk too.
Yeah, I've thought about proposing one a couple times now.
I have been toying around with the idea, but I would have to work on it first.
Yeah. Oh, yes. I was like, okay, I think I might do this.
Yeah, exactly. Like I haven't. I'm starting to. Maybe the Gama Sutra article could be the catalyst for like figuring out what the core of it would be.
Yeah.
Because that's what I don't know yet. We'll see. Stay tuned. You never know. The Gama Sutra article may happen though. I think that might actually be possible.
Anyway, I suppose we'll wrap this up now. So again, thank you again for meeting with us. Kind of a random tangent went off on there that was really, really useful, really natural conversation.
It's just like we know what we're doing or something.
Yeah,
it's
right.
Weird. It's strange.
But yeah, thank you again for meeting with me.
Of course. Yeah, just the on-camera handshake. Excellent.
Anyway, see you later.
Bye.